The morning sun over forward operating base Resolute rose like a burning coin, coating the desert in a harsh golden haze. Heat shimmered off the metal containers, the antenna towers, the armored trucks lined in neat rows like sleeping beasts. Dust hung in the air, never settling, never still. Soldiers moved with practiced rhythm, helmets clipped, rifles slung, routines drilled into their bones. And in the middle of all that hardened motion walked Layla Carter, the one person on the base almost nobody noticed. 28 years old, half Iraqi, half American, raised in Michigan, fluent in Arabic, Dari, Pashto, and the quiet ways people communicate when they're afraid. She wore the same uniform as everyone else, except hers carried the identifying patch that some rangers jokingly called the world's most polite superpower: linguist. Her job: translate, observe, stay out of the way. But even she knew that sometimes words were the only thing standing between life and death. That morning, though, she moved silently, head down, a folder of documents pressed against her chest. She wasn't trying to avoid anyone, just a habit formed from months of being treated like a piece of equipment rather than a member of the team. "Hey, translator." A voice cut through the sunlit noise. Layla turned. Sergeant First Class Brooks Hale, an Army Ranger built like a stone wall that decided to walk upright, strode toward her. His sleeves were rolled, revealing a forearm scar that ran from wrist to elbow. Rumors said it came from a knife fight in the mountains, but he never confirmed. His jaw was set in permanent vigilance, and even at rest his eyes scanned everything like a threat might be hiding behind any grain of sand. He held a tablet in one hand and a bottle of warm water in the other. "You're with Convoy Delta today," he said, voice clipped. Brief moved up, wheels up in 10. Layla's stomach tightened. "Today, I wasn't assigned." "You are now." Brooks handed her the water. "Hydrate." He didn't wait for her response. He turned and walked away as if the matter was settled, as if her nerves didn't matter, as if her pounding heartbeat was just another irrelevant sound on base. Layla stood frozen. Convoy missions were the most unpredictable. Routes could be quiet for weeks and then explode into chaos without warning. And though she wasn't supposed to fight, she had seen enough burned-out vehicles by the roadside to understand. Bullets don't avoid translators. Explosives don't discriminate. She swallowed a breath and jogged toward the vehicle's staging area. The convoy prepped like an iron serpent waking from sleep, armored MRAPs rumbling, turrets rotating, gunners adjusting straps and checking ammo belts. Dust clouds churned beneath the wheels. Radios crackled with clipped instructions. Brooks was already at his vehicle, checking the turret alignment. His team, Rangers with reputations as sharp as their rifles, moved around him with synchronized precision. Layla approached, helmet fastened, gloves on, backpack strapped tight. One of the Rangers, a tall corporal named Ruiz, smirked when he saw her. "Oh great," he muttered, "the dictionary's coming along." Another walker grinned as he loaded a crate. "Relax, Ruiz. Maybe she can sweet-talk the Taliban out of shooting at us." They laughed. Layla didn't. Brooks didn't either. He glanced over his shoulder. "Knock it off." The two Rangers instantly sobered. Brooks jerked his chin toward the rear door of the MRAP. "Carter, you're in the back seat. Keep your headset on. Speak only when I ask." Layla climbed inside, taking the seat behind the driver. The armored interior felt like a cramped oven, every movement amplified in the metal cage. Brooks slid into the commander's seat beside the driver and placed his tablet in the holder, maps flickering across the screen. Outside, the sunlight reflected off his sunglasses, but inside the vehicle Layla could see the lines in his face, lines carved by years of danger, responsibility, and the weight of keeping others alive. The convoy rolled out of the gate. The desert stretched endlessly, a barren scape of sand, rock, and unforgiving sunlight. The hum of the engine filled the cabin. Layla's tethered headset connected her to the Convoy net, voices layered on voices, call signs trading updates. Delta 1 clear. Delta 4 moving. Keep spacing. Eyes open on the ridge. Brooks watched every ripple of terrain like it had personally offended him. Layla watched him. He was different today, more tense, more alert. His jaw flexed, his eyes darted. He had that look of someone expecting a storm that others didn't yet feel. After 20 minutes, he broke the silence. "You read the intel brief this morning." "I skimmed it," Layla said. "Something about chatter near the western road." "Chatter is putting it softly." Brooks lowered his voice. Sigint picked up 2 words on repeat: convoy and ambush. Layla's fingers tightened around the strap of her pack. "Why send us this route then?" she asked. Brooks gave a humorless half-smile. "Because leadership thinks the threat is overstated." "And you," she pressed. His expression hardened. "I think leadership gets people killed." The MRAP jolted over a rock, shaking dust from the roof. Layla felt the heaviness in his words, not just a warning but a prediction. Brooks wasn't careless, he wasn't dramatic, he wasn't emotional. If he felt something was wrong, something was wrong. And Layla felt it too. A shift in the wind. A strange silence outside. A growing tension sinking into her ribs. She opened her mouth to speak. Then the driver muttered, "What the hell?" Layla leaned forward. Ahead on the road was a shepherd, young, maybe 16, standing stiffly beside a goat. He wasn't moving, not waving, not looking up, just frozen. Too frozen. Brooks swore under his breath. "That's wrong, that's all wrong." Ruiz's voice came over the net. "Delta 2 to Delta 1, that kid hasn't blinked." Brooks grabbed the radio. "All vehicles stop, stop right now." The convoy braked hard, dust billowing. Layla's heart hammered. She felt something shift in the air, instinct, dread, something primal. The shepherd boy stared at the convoy, not with fear but with anticipation. Brooks turned to her. "Carter," he said, "tell him, yell if you have to, ask if there's danger, now." Layla rolled down the armored window slit, cupping her hands around her mouth. "Hal mushkila huna," she shouted in Arabic. "Hal tahya laka anahu am." The boy didn't answer. He lifted his hand. Just slightly. Layla's breath caught. Brooks shouted, "All vehicles reverse, geo back." The boy pointed to the ground. And suddenly, the desert erupted. A roar like thunder. A blast wave tearing through the air. Sand and shrapnel leaping skyward. The lead vehicle, Delta 1, lifted off the ground as if pulled by an invisible giant. Layla screamed as the shockwave slammed into their MRAP, rattling her bones. The convoy plunged into chaos. Brooks grabbed the radio. Contact front, contact front." Gunfire cracked across the ridges, dozens of muzzle flashes, dozens of shooters. "We're boxed in," Ruiz yelled. "We've got fire from all sides." Layla's ears rang as she ducked behind the seat. Brooks swung his rifle up, eyes blazing with fury. The translator, who was supposed to be invisible, suddenly found herself in the center of a battlefield. Outside, shapes moved along the rocks, organized, coordinated, waiting for the perfect moment to finish what they'd started. Brooks cursed, "This isn't random, this is an execution." Layla's breath trembled. Because she knew. The boy wasn't a warning. He was a signal. And the ambush had only just begun. The blast had thrown the convoy into a chaotic frenzy. Smoke swirled like ghosts over the sand, curling around the twisted remains of the lead vehicle. Metal screeched as armored doors jammed, tires shredded over rocky ground, and the acrid stench of burning fuel clawed at every nose. Gunfire cracked from the surrounding ridges, echoing against the desert's endless walls like the drums of war. Inside the MRAP, Layla's hands shook as she clutched her headset, the words from her father echoing in her head. When you're invisible, you survive. When you step forward, you become a target. She had never been anything but invisible. She had never been more than a voice on the radio, a pair of eyes translating the world for others. And yet, here she was, pinned to the back of a vehicle under a hailstorm of bullets, the real possibility of death pressing against her chest. Brooks Hale barked orders with machine-like precision. Delta 2, Delta 3, flank right. Delta 4, hold the line, eyes on the ridges. The other Rangers scrambled, rifles raised, scanning for movement. The ambush was no accident. It was carefully orchestrated. These weren't scattered fighters. They were trained, coordinated, and waiting for one slip, one misstep. Layla's stomach churned. Her eyes darted to the wounded soldiers slumped in the back of the MRAP. A young private groaned, clutching his leg. Blood soaked his uniform, turning dust brown to deep crimson. Brooks leaned over her. His voice was low but edged with urgency. "Carter, get me the intel on what they're using, how many weapons, positions, anything you can pick up. Now." Her pulse raced. I don't know, I wasn't trained for this." "You've been trained to read them," he snapped. "Read the signs, speak Arabic, find out what they want." The sound of gunfire drew Layla's attention. She focused, trying to catch phrases in Arabic over the chaos, recognizing words her brain had cataloged over years of translating for military and intelligence purposes. "Convoy stop kill." She swallowed hard. Her voice trembled, but she forced it into a broadcast over the convoy's internal net, translating for Brooks and the other Rangers. "They have at least 12 shooters, RPGs, small arms. Positions, North Ridge, South Ridge, canyon edges. They intend to disable the convoy and finish us in the open." Brooks' eyes narrowed. "Good, that's enough to work with." He glanced around at his team. "Listen up, we're not trapped, we fight through. Carter, you stay with me, give me anything you hear. You're my eyes and ears out there." Her throat went dry. Her life had just shifted, from invisible translator to coordinator of survival. Her hands moved over the tablet, checking routes, map overlays, and possible escape paths. The MRAP lurched again as another RPG slammed into the sand beside them, throwing rocks like missiles. Sparks flew from the turret, and one of the side mirrors shattered under the pressure. The vehicle shuddered. "Brooks," Ruiz shouted, "we're pinned down, can't move." "Then we fight," Brooks barked, everyone suppressing fire. The Rangers leaned out of the hatches, firing toward the ridges, tracers illuminating the smoke in red and gold arcs. Bullets pounded against metal. Shouts, screams, and the sharp smell of gunpowder created a symphony of controlled chaos. Layla's stomach twisted as she realized the vulnerability of their position. The MRAP, though armored, was no longer a fortress. Every movement outside was life or death. Every word she translated could decide who lived and who didn't. She strained to catch more Arabic phrases. "Back, hit, slow, kill." "Brooks," she said, her voice quivering yet steady with focus, "they're trying to isolate us. If we push south, there's a dry wadi about 2 clicks from here. They'll trap us if we move there." Brooks' jaw clenched. "Copy that, we go east, less cover but less predictable." He spun the turret and fired a warning shot toward the ridge. Layla realized something horrifying. She could no longer just observe. She had to think like a soldier, act like a soldier, survive like a soldier. Suddenly, a sharp, almost metallic whine tore through the air. An RPG struck one of the convoy's rear vehicles. The explosion threw dirt and debris into the air. Soldiers shouted, some were thrown to the ground. One vehicle spun on its side like a discarded toy. "Move," Brooks ordered. "Carter with me." Layla's heart pounded as she climbed out of the MRAP, feeling the hot wind blast her face and sand sting her eyes. Her rifle, though only lightly used, felt heavy in her hands. She realized with a jolt that for the first time she was not just translating. She was fighting for her life. Gunfire ricocheted off rocks. She dropped low, rolling behind a battered wall of sandbags. Her pulse raced. Every instinct told her to hide, but Brooks waved her forward. "Eyes open, translate for me," he shouted over the din. A voice in Arabic came from the ridge, clear now through her headset. Layla processed it at lightning speed, translating for Brooks and the Rangers. "They're moving left, trying to flank. 2 on the ridge, watch for RPGs. Fire on first target and signal me when ready." Brooks nodded, firing his rifle in a controlled burst. Ruiz and Walker moved in tandem, covering flanks. Layla ducked low, relaying information, her eyes darting across the battlefield, every sense firing. Then a sharp scream split the air. One of the younger soldiers, barely 18, had been hit. Blood poured from his shoulder. Layla's stomach lurched, but Brooks didn't hesitate. He grabbed the injured soldier and pulled him behind cover, assessing the wound in seconds. Layla's voice trembled as she translated cries for medevac. She felt a strange clarity, a focus she had never known. The fear was still there, gnawing at her, but beneath it was a cold, hard edge. Survive. Keep them alive. Read the enemy. React. The attackers on the ridge shifted, taking positions closer. Layla realized that if she misread one phrase, one movement, the convoy could be wiped out. Her life, once measured in words, was now measured in seconds. Brooks crouched beside her, his eyes locking onto hers for a brief, urgent second. "Carter, stay sharp. You might be the difference between them getting us or us getting them." Her throat went dry, she nodded. A sudden flare erupted from the canyon below. Tracer rounds lit the air, cutting shadows across the rock faces. The attackers were advancing faster than expected. Layla's mind raced. She saw a glint, a sniper's scope reflecting sunlight. Her stomach dropped. She relayed it instantly to Brooks, who cursed under his breath and adjusted their position. "Get down," he shouted. Bullets slammed against the sandbags. One struck a metal container near her, sending shrapnel clattering across her arm. Pain shot through her. She gasped, pressing herself closer to the ground, but she kept talking, kept translating, kept guiding the Rangers. Suddenly the northern ridge went silent. Too silent, Layla froze. Brooks' hand went up. "Hold position, something's wrong, watch that ridge." Her pulse thundered in her ears. The ambush had a new layer, one they hadn't anticipated. From the canyon, a shadow moved, larger than a soldier, faster, calculated. Someone or something was closing in from a route they didn't expect. Layla's breath caught. She recognized instinctively the shape of a trained fighter. Brooks' eyes narrowed. "Carter, tell me what you see." She inhaled, translating every subtle movement. "They're coming closer, moving around multiple targets. Right side canyon." Brooks' jaw tightened. "Everyone prepare for close contact. This is it. Brace yourselves." Layla's chest constricted. Every muscle screamed, every thought screamed. She had been just a translator, a silent observer, invisible to the battlefield. Now she was the eyes, the voice, the guide, the thread between life and death for this team. And she knew the next few seconds would decide everything. The desert held its breath. The ambush had reached its deadly crescendo. The sun was merciless, burning the desert like molten gold. Dust hung in the air, thick with the acrid stench of smoke, scorched metal, and gunpowder. The convoy was crippled, 2 vehicles disabled, one overturned, their engines coughing black smoke into the sky. Bullets hammered the sand, ricocheting like deadly hail, and explosions from RPGs punctuated the chaos with bone-rattling force. Layla Carter's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. She had never fired a weapon in her life, had never stepped into combat beyond a classroom simulation. Yet here she was, crawling behind a sandbag, headset on, every nerve screaming. She was no longer just a translator. She was the thread keeping the Rangers alive, giving life-saving information under fire. Brooks Hale crouched beside her, rifle at the ready. His eyes, cold and unflinching, scanned the ridges above and the canyon flanking their flank. Sweat streamed down his face, mixed with dust, but he moved with calm, lethal precision. Every movement was deliberate, calculated, a predator who had lived in this chaos before. "Carter," he shouted, voice cutting through the din. "Eyes on the east ridge. How many are moving?" Layla's fingers trembled on her headset. She tried to push panic aside, listening intently. Snippets of Arabic, the sharp commands of the enemy fighters, floated through the airwaves, fragmented but decipherable. "3, advance, flank left, target them." She relayed the message, voice trembling but firm. "Brooks, 3 fighters moving along the east ridge trying to flank us. Prepare for contact." Brooks' jaw tightened. "Copy that, Ruiz, Walker, cover left. Delta 3, suppress that ridge." The Rangers sprang into action with brutal efficiency. The air erupted with tracer fire, flashes illuminating the dusty battlefield in harsh streaks of red and yellow. Shouts, gunfire, and explosions merged into a cacophony of war. Layla ducked, feeling the heat of bullets striking the sand near her face. Her hands gripped the straps of her backpack, her mind racing, cataloging every sound, every movement, every word. The survival of the convoy depended on her translation and observation. One of the flanking shooters exposed himself too long. Brooks fired a precise burst, and the figure dropped into the sand, motionless. "Target down," Layla called, adrenaline surging. "Good," Brooks said grimly. "But there's more. Check the South Canyon. Carter, tell me what you hear." Her headset crackled with fragments of conversation. "Grenade, approach, disable convoy." "They're moving in the South Canyon with explosives," she translated, her voice calm despite the terror clawing at her chest. "Multiple attackers. They want to collapse the road behind us." Brooks swore. "Delta 2, block the canyon exit. Ruiz, Walker, cover that side." Another explosion ripped through the sand nearby. The MRAP shuddered violently, and Layla fell to the ground, coughing dust. When she lifted her head, she saw sparks flying from the turret above. The convoy was under siege from multiple angles, each one deadlier than the last. Her mind raced. This was beyond anything she had imagined. This was life and death. No simulations, no scripts, no safety nets. Every phrase she translated could save a life or cost one. She caught the sound of a faint whistle, followed by a command in Arabic. "Use the ridge, trap them, finish." Layla's eyes widened. She translated instantly. "Brooks, they're trying to trap us between the ridge and the canyon. If we don't move, we'll be pinned." Brooks' eyes hardened. "Carter, stay close. We're going through the center, fast, suppressive fire now." The Rangers leapt into action. Layla followed, heart hammering, rifle clutched tight though untested in her hands. Bullets streaked past, ricocheting off metal. Sparks erupted from nearby rocks as enemy rounds struck. Explosions thundered, sending up clouds of dust that blinded and disoriented. The convoy advanced, inch by inch, under the hail of fire. Layla's voice never wavered as she relayed enemy positions, movements, and commands. She felt her adrenaline sharpen every sense. Every sight, sound, and vibration became a signal, a lifeline for the Rangers' survival. A grenade landed near the rear MRAP. Layla's eyes widened, heart leaping into her throat. She yelled out, translating for the gunner, "Grenade, north side, throw it clear." Brooks reacted instantly, kicking a sandbag to deflect the shrapnel and shouting orders. The grenade exploded harmlessly in the sand. For a moment, the battlefield fell silent, just the hiss of dust settling and the distant crackle of gunfire. Layla took a deep breath, adrenaline still coursing. She had survived the first wave, but the enemy wasn't done. She knew it instinctively. From the ridges, figures emerged, moving with lethal coordination. They were fast, disciplined, their movements precise. Layla caught fragments of conversation. "Kill, flank, destroy." She translated quickly, guiding the Rangers. "Brooks, they're regrouping. East Ridge, 3 more fighters moving behind rocks." Brooks scanned, rifle raised. "Delta 3, take them down. Carter, eyes on the south flank. The firefight intensified. Bullets tore through metal, ricocheted off rocks, and kicked up clouds of sand. One of the Rangers, Walker, was hit in the leg, collapsing to the ground with a scream. Brooks dove, dragging him behind cover. Layla felt panic clawing, but she suppressed it, relaying every movement of the enemy. Her hands shook, but her mind was clear. She saw the patterns, understood the tactics, and became the guide that Brooks needed. She was no longer just a translator. She was a force multiplier, a critical piece in the deadly puzzle unfolding in the desert. Suddenly, the southern canyon erupted. Explosions shook the ground. The convoy's path was blocked. Layla's pulse raced. She realized they were about to be completely trapped. "Carter," Brooks shouted, voice tight with urgency. "Any options?" Her mind raced. She scanned the map on the tablet, remembering every contour of the terrain. There, a narrow wadi running east, partially hidden by rock outcroppings. It was risky, uneven, but it offered cover and a chance to escape the trap. "East," she yelled, pointing. "We can move east through the wadi. It's narrow, but it'll give cover from the ridges." Brooks nodded sharply. "Delta 1, break cover and move east. Suppressive fire on both flanks." The Rangers fired in controlled bursts, covering the vehicles as they maneuvered toward the wadi. Bullets struck nearby rocks, sending showers of sparks into the sky. Explosions echoed, the sand clouds blinding and suffocating. Layla ran alongside the MRAP, shouting enemy positions over the headset, translating every movement, guiding every step. Her heart pounded, her lungs burned, but she kept moving, kept guiding, kept surviving. Then she heard it, a low, chilling sound, a whistle sharp and deliberate cutting through the chaos. She froze, her blood ran cold. Brooks noticed it too. He swung around, rifle raised. "Carter, what is that?" She caught the words whispered in Arabic by a distant figure. "Finish. Now, do not let them escape." Her stomach dropped. She realized with horror, the enemy wasn't just attacking. They were coordinating an execution, and the wadi might be a trap itself. Brooks' eyes narrowed. Everyone brace, something's coming, something bigger. The desert seemed to hold its breath. Sand stung their faces, smoke blurred the horizon, and in the distance, figures moved with lethal intent. Layla's heart raced. She had survived bullets, explosions, and chaos, but now she faced a chilling possibility. Even the path she had identified for escape might lead straight into the enemy's deadliest strike yet. She swallowed, her throat dry, and whispered to herself, "I am not invisible anymore. I have to be more. I have to save them." The Rangers readied themselves. The wadi lay ahead, promising cover and danger. And from the ridges and canyon, shadows began to converge. The wadi yawned ahead, a narrow cut through the desert rocks that promised temporary cover but no safety. Dust and debris swirled around the convoy as the Rangers maneuvered the vehicles with precision, tires crunching over jagged stones. Layla Carter crouched low in the back of the MRAP, heart pounding, translating every sound, every movement, every whisper she caught from the enemy. The shadows in the canyon stretched long, twisted by the afternoon sun. From the ridges above, glints of metal reflected sunlight, sniper scopes, rifles, and the faint sheen of armor. Bullets zipped past, slicing through the air like angry hornets. Explosions erupted behind them, sending clouds of dust that smelled of burning sand and diesel. Brooks Hale's voice cut through the chaos. "Carter, keep your eyes on the flanks. Tell me what they're doing." She swallowed hard, scanning the rock formations, listening to the clipped phrases in Arabic. "East Wadi, trap them, cornered, finish." Her stomach knotted. She realized with a surge of dread that the wadi wasn't just cover, it was the enemy's funnel. They had calculated every move, designed every step of the convoy's route to lead them here. If they didn't act fast, the ambush would become a slaughter. "They've set up positions along the rocks," she shouted. "Multiple shooters on the high ground, about 50 meters up, preparing to fire down on us. and there's a secondary team closing in from the north side. Brooks' jaw clenched. Delta 2 suppress the north. Delta 3 East Ridge, Carter stay close. This is going to get tight. The MRAP shuddered violently as an RPG slammed into the wadi's edge, throwing stones and sand into the air. Sparks and shards of metal flew past Layla's helmet. She ducked low, dust choking her lungs. Her hands clutched her tablet like a lifeline. The convoy was pinned, but she couldn't stop moving, couldn't stop translating, couldn't stop guiding them. From the canyon, a sharp whistle split the air, an almost musical signal, eerie in its precision. Layla's blood ran cold. That whistle wasn't just a warning, it was a countdown. Brooks' eyes narrowed. They've coordinated something bigger, look alive. The Rangers leapt from the vehicles, rifles snapping into action. Bullets streaked past rocks, kicking up clouds of sand. Layla rolled behind a sandbag, feeling each impact reverberate through her body. Her ears rang from the relentless gunfire, but she forced herself to focus. Every word she translated could save a life. Every phrase she caught could mean survival. She heard it, a whispered command in Arabic. Explode, block the escape, no mercy. They've rigged explosives, she yelled, translating instantly. Secondary team is placing IEDs along our route. Brooks cursed. Delta 4 check for charges, everyone else hold positions. Carter, keep feeding me updates. Layla's stomach churned. Her training had been linguistic, analytical, observational, but now she was the link between life and death. She scanned the rocks, catching subtle movements of the enemy fighters. A hand disappearing behind a boulder, a flash of metal, a shift in posture. 2 on the East Ridge preparing to fire RPGs, she called. Brooks snapped his fingers. Walker, take the left, Ruiz, cover the right. The firefight intensified. The wadi became a funnel of chaos, a deadly artery where bullets flew like angry wasps, explosions shook the ground, and the Rangers moved with the precision of predators. Layla ducked, rolled, and relayed information, her voice trembling but steady. She realized she had never felt more alive and more terrified at the same time. Suddenly, the northern edge erupted in fire. An RPG slammed into a vehicle ahead, flipping it onto its side. The driver screamed, thrown against the interior. Layla felt bile rise as she ducked behind cover, the acrid smoke filling her lungs. Delta 1 to all units, Brooks roared. Suppressing fire, we move through the wadi now. Layla pointed to a narrow path cutting through the jagged rocks. East, through the gorge. Less cover, but it's our only chance. Brooks nodded. Move. The Rangers opened fire, covering the convoy as the vehicles surged forward. Bullets ricocheted off rocks, explosions echoed like thunderclaps, and sand whipped into their faces. Layla's pulse raced, but her mind sharpened. She translated enemy positions, movements, and commands at lightning speed, guiding each step, each turn, each breath. A sharp scream tore through the air. One of the younger soldiers had been hit, blood splattering against the dusty ground. Brooks lunged forward, dragging him behind a rock, assessing the wound in seconds. Layla's voice was steady, translating cries for medevac and instructions for suppressive fire. She had become the nerve center of survival. Her fear was there, gnawing at her, but she could not afford hesitation. Not here. Not now. Suddenly, a figure appeared on a ledge above them, a sniper, poised and deadly. Layla froze, recognition dawning. He was calm, professional, calculating. She relayed his position immediately. Brooks' rifle barked in response, a sharp series of bursts. The sniper ducked, and for a moment silence fell like a held breath. But the enemy was relentless. Another figure emerged from the rocks, a fighter carrying explosives, moving swiftly toward the convoy. Layla's stomach dropped. Brooks, he's rigged a secondary explosive. Brooks swore. Delta 2 intercept, everyone else cover fire. The Rangers moved as one, a deadly choreography honed over years of training. Layla stayed low, translating, watching, guiding. Every phrase she caught, every movement she identified kept the convoy alive. Then from the rocks a new sound, a low, rumbling whistle. The enemy was signaling reinforcements. Layla's heart sank. They were not just attacking, they were preparing to crush them completely. Brooke's eyes met hers for a split second, a silent acknowledgement of the danger. "Carter, you've been incredible. Stay sharp, this isn't over." The wadi narrowed. Bullets screamed past, sand exploded under fire, and the convoy advanced inch by inch. Layla felt her lungs burn, her muscles ache, but she did not stop. Her words, her translations, her observations were the lifeline keeping the Rangers alive. And then she saw it, a shadow detaching from the rocks above, moving faster than expected. A figure armed with an RPG heading straight for Delta 1. Layla's mind raced. She shouted over the headset, "Brooks, RPG coming, right side 50 meters, take cover and intercept." Brooks' eyes narrowed. "Hold your fire, wait for my signal." The figure stopped, calculating, adjusting his aim. Time stretched. Seconds felt like hours. Layla's pulse thundered. She realized the convoy's fate, her words, everything depended on this moment. And then the RPG fired. Brooks reacted instantly, firing, throwing himself at the soldier, and the explosion rocked the ground. Dust and debris filled the air. For a heartbeat, silence fell. Layla's chest heaved, adrenaline pumping. She realized they had survived the first wave of the wadi trap, but the enemy wasn't finished. The ridge, the canyon, the shadows, they were all still alive, still moving, still ready to strike. The desert seemed to watch, silent and indifferent, as the Rangers regrouped, and Layla continued to translate every movement, every command, every heartbeat. She was no longer just a translator. She was the link between life and death, the voice of strategy, the eyes that saved lives in the chaos of bullets and explosions. And she knew the next move could be their last. The wadi seemed to close in around them, the jagged rocks towering like silent sentinels. Dust hung thick in the air, a choking haze filled with the smell of burnt diesel, gunpowder, and scorched metal. The Rangers had stabilized the convoy temporarily, but the enemy was far from finished. Layla Carter crouched low, her eyes scanning every rock, every shadow, every movement, translating every whisper and command she picked up from the enemy. "Carter," Brooks Hale barked, his voice sharp, slicing through the chaos. "What do they have coming at us next?" She adjusted her headset, listening intently. Fragments of Arabic reached her ears. Reinforcements, explosives, trap, flank, finish. "They're regrouping," she shouted. "Multiple units moving from the North Canyon, bringing more explosives. They intend to trap us completely." Brooks' jaw clenched. "Delta 2 suppress the North. Everyone else prepare for a counterattack. Carter, keep talking. We need every second of warning." The convoy's vehicles rattled as bullets peppered their sides, ricocheting off armor with deafening clangs. Sparks flew as rounds struck metal. The younger Rangers exchanged gunfire with the advancing enemy, their movements sharp, precise, rehearsed from countless drills. Yet the sheer number of attackers, combined with their coordination, threatened to overwhelm even the best-trained unit. Layla swallowed hard. Her hands trembled as she transmitted every word she deciphered. "East Ridge RPGs, 2 ready, South Canyon, multiple armed, advancing fast." Brooks' eyes narrowed. "Copy that. Delta 3 take the ridge, suppress them before they can fire. Delta 4 cover the south." The firefight escalated. Tracers streaked the dusty air, bullets whipped past rocks and metal, and explosions shook the wadi, throwing sand and debris like lethal confetti. Layla ducked, narrowly avoiding a piece of shrapnel that clanged against the sandbag beside her. Suddenly, a deafening blast erupted behind the convoy. One of the vehicles had been hit by an IED planted earlier. Flames engulfed it instantly. Soldiers screamed as smoke and debris rose in a choking cloud. Layla's stomach dropped. She felt bile rise as the reality of their precarious position hit her. They were not just under fire, they were being funneled into a death trap. "Move," Brooks roared. "Delta 1, push forward. Delta 2, cover fire. Carter, call out every position. Don't let them flank us." Her voice trembled but stayed steady as she relayed the enemy's movements. "North Canyon, 2 fighters with RPGs. South Ridge, sniper moving closer. East Wadi narrowing, danger." Brooks' eyes darted across the battlefield. He was assessing, calculating, predicting, but even he could not see everything. That was where Layla became invaluable. She was no longer just a translator. She was the eyes and ears of the team, the link between life and death. The Rangers advanced cautiously, using the rocky terrain for cover. Bullets ricocheted off the jagged walls of the wadi, sand exploded around them, and the smell of burning fuel mixed with the metallic tang of blood. Layla's mind raced, processing every fragment of conversation she could decipher, every movement of the enemy, every shift in the battlefield. Suddenly, a sharp whistle pierced the air, an ominous, deliberate signal. Layla froze, her heart hammering. That whistle was not just coordination, it was a countdown. She realized the enemy was about to launch a devastating counterattack. "They're preparing explosives," she shouted. "Multiple charges along the north and east paths. If we move wrong, we'll be trapped." Brooks swore. "Delta 3, check for charges, everyone else suppressing fire." The Rangers opened fire with deadly precision, bullets tearing through the sand, ricocheting off rocks and striking enemy positions. Sparks flew from every angle. Layla ducked, feeling each impact reverberate through her body, but she did not stop. Every word she spoke could save a life, guide a shot, or prevent disaster. Then she saw it, a figure moving along the ridge carrying an RPG aimed directly at the convoy. She gasped, relaying instantly. "Brooks, RPG North Ridge, 50 meters preparing to fire." Brooks' eyes narrowed. "Hold your fire, wait for the shot." The figure fired. The RPG slammed into the side of the wadi, sending a deafening explosion and a shockwave that rattled the convoy. Dust and rocks flew in every direction. Soldiers screamed, thrown to the ground, dust choking their lungs. Layla's pulse thundered. She realized the convoy's survival depended on her next move. "Brooks, there's a narrow path east. We can move through it, avoid the blast." Brooks nodded sharply. "Delta 1, shift east. Delta 2, cover fire." The Rangers leapt into action. Bullets streaked past, rocks erupted under fire, and explosions continued to punctuate the chaos. Layla ducked low, translating every enemy movement, every command, every whisper. She realized she had never been more alive or more terrified in her life. A young private screamed as he was hit in the shoulder. Brooks lunged forward, dragging him behind cover, assessing the wound in seconds. Layla's stomach churned, but she forced herself to focus. Her translations and observations were the lifeline keeping the Rangers alive. Then a figure emerged from the shadows of the northern ridge, larger, faster, more precise than anyone else. Layla's heart dropped. He was carrying explosives, moving with deadly intent toward the convoy. "Brooks, he's got charges, moving fast," Layla shouted. Brooks reacted instantly, firing, his body moving like a predator, intercepting the threat. The figure faltered, dropped the explosives, and fell into the sand with a grunt. The explosion, however, was unavoidable. Secondary charges detonated along the path. The wadi shook violently. Dust and debris filled the air. Layla pressed herself against the ground, choking, heart racing. For a heartbeat, she thought they might be finished. Then she heard Brooks' voice. "We're not done yet. Everyone stay sharp." The Rangers regrouped, battered but alive. Layla's hands trembled as she relayed enemy positions, movements, and commands. She realized she was no longer just a translator. She was a tactical coordinator, guiding the Rangers through the chaos. From the shadows of the rocks, the enemy shifted again, signaling reinforcements. Layla's stomach knotted. They were relentless. They would not stop. Brooks' eyes met hers for a brief moment. "Carter, stay with me. We're not done yet." The convoy braced for another wave. Bullets screamed through the wadi, sand exploded under fire, and the Rangers readied themselves for the next attack. Layla inhaled sharply, translating rapidly. "East Wadi, Northridge grenades ready, flank." Her throat went dry. She realized with a jolt that the next few seconds could decide everything, their survival, their lives, everything. And then the wadi erupted with a new wave of gunfire and explosions, shaking the ground beneath them. Layla's hands clutched her tablet, translating with every ounce of focus, adrenaline coursing like fire through her veins. She was no longer invisible. She was essential, critical, the link between life and death for the Rangers. And in that moment she realized, survival wasn't enough. They had to fight back or the ambush would finish them all. Desert seemed to hold its breath. Bullets ripped past, explosions rocked the wadi, shadows moved, and Layla, translator, no longer prepared herself to step fully into the chaos that had become her reality. The wadi trembled under the onslaught. Dust and debris hung thick in the air, punctuated by the staccato of bullets and the sharp detonations of explosives. The convoy was battered, vehicles scarred, wheels shredded, smoke rising from engines, but Brooks Hale and his Rangers had not yet fallen. Layla Carter crouched low behind a jagged rock, gripping her headset like a lifeline. She was exhausted, every muscle screaming, yet her mind raced faster than ever. She wasn't just translating anymore. She was the convoy's eyes, ears, and voice, a vital nerve guiding the Rangers through the chaos. Brooks surveyed the battlefield. His rifle snapped in controlled bursts, eyes sharp, every movement precise. He had kept them alive this far, but the enemy was relentless, adaptive, and coordinated. "Carter," he barked, voice cutting through the din. "What's the layout, positions, weak points?" Layla scanned the enemy positions, listening to the rapid-fire Arabic commands. "East Wadi, flanking, block escape. Grenades ready, suppressing fire." "They're moving to flank us on the East Ridge," she shouted. "Grenades and RPGs, preparing to cut off our escape." Brooks' jaw tightened. "Delta 2, suppress the ridge. Delta 3, cover the south. Carter, relay every movement." The Rangers leapt into action, bullets tearing through the sand and ricocheting off rocks. Sparks flew, explosions thundered, and sand stung like fire against their faces. Layla stayed low, relaying every whisper of the enemy's plan. She realized with clarity, her translations were now the lifeline between life and death for the convoy. An RPG slammed into the side of a vehicle ahead, flipping it onto its side. The driver screamed, thrown violently against the interior. Layla felt bile rise but forced herself to focus, eyes darting over every ridge and canyon edge. "East," she shouted suddenly, pointing to a narrow path cutting through the rocks. "We can advance there, less predictable, partially covered." Brooks nodded sharply. "Delta 1, move. Delta 2, cover fire. Carter, stay with me." The Rangers advanced, their rifles snapping, suppressing fire covering their path. Bullets ripped through sand, ricocheting off jagged rock. Explosions punctuated the chaos, sand and debris filling the air like a storm. Layla ducked low, translating enemy movements. 2 on the ridge, sniper in the North Canyon, advancing fast, blocking exits. A young private screamed as he was hit in the shoulder. Brooks dove, dragging him behind cover and assessing the wound in seconds. Layla's chest tightened. She had never been this close to death or responsibility. Then she saw it, a figure moving along the ridge carrying explosives aiming directly at the convoy. Her heart dropped. She translated instantly. "Brooks, RPG North Ridge, 50 meters preparing to fire." Brooks reacted like lightning. He fired, sending the figure sprawling. Sparks flew as rounds ricocheted off the rocks. The secondary charges exploded harmlessly in the sand. For a brief moment, silence fell. But Layla knew they were far from safe. The enemy had regrouped, bringing reinforcements and readying for another wave. "Carter," Brooks said, breathing hard, sweat streaming down his face. "We have to hit them, now." Her stomach churned. She wasn't trained for this, but instinct had sharpened over the firefight. She pointed to the enemy's eastern flank, the path she had identified earlier. "We can use that. It's partially covered. If we move fast, we can flank them and break their positions." Brooks' eyes lit with determination. "Delta 1, follow the wadi east. Carter, stay in the center, relay positions." The Rangers surged forward, suppressing fire ripping through the wadi. Bullets whizzed past, striking rocks, kicking up sparks. The enemy shouted in Arabic, reorganizing as Layla called out every movement, guiding the Rangers step by step. An RPG detonated near the rear MRAP, flipping it partially onto its side. Dust and debris filled the air. Layla's ears rang, chest pounding. She ducked low, relaying enemy positions. Northridge 2 with explosives, sniper moving left, advancing fast. Brooks scanned, calculating, and fired precise bursts. Ruiz and Walker moved to intercept the North Ridge, bullets striking enemy positions with lethal accuracy. Layla's voice never faltered, guiding every action. Suddenly, a grenade landed between two vehicles. Layla's stomach dropped. She translated instantly. "A grenade, north side, clear it." The Rangers reacted instantly. One soldier kicked the grenade aside. It exploded harmlessly against the sand. Layla exhaled sharply, chest tight with adrenaline. Then she saw it, an enemy sniper moving to higher ground, taking aim at the convoy commander. Her pulse spiked. "Sniper, North Canyon, preparing shot," she shouted. Brooks reacted, firing, ducking behind cover. Sparks flew as the sniper's bullet struck rock inches away. Layla's hands shook, but her voice remained steady. "Moving left, repositioning, take cover." The convoy pushed through the eastern path, bullets tearing through sand, explosions erupting around them. Layla stayed low, translating every whisper, every command, every movement. She had become more than a translator. She was the convoy's lifeline, the nerve center guiding them through chaos. Suddenly she heard it, a low, deliberate whistle cutting through the din. Her blood ran cold. That whistle was not just a warning, it was a signal. The enemy was coordinating their deadliest strike yet. "They're preparing something huge," she yelled. "Multiple charges, secondary traps. If we're not careful, we'll be trapped again." Brooks' eyes narrowed. "Delta 3, check for charges. Delta 4, cover fire. Everyone else move forward." The Rangers surged, bullets ripping past, rocks exploding under fire and dust choking the air. Layla ducked, translating, guiding, keeping every Ranger informed. Then she saw movement on the ridge, a coordinated group advancing fast, carrying explosives and firing small arms. Her chest tightened. "North Ridge, advancing with explosives, prepare to block exit," she shouted. Brooks cursed. "We're moving too slow. Carter, get me every detail now." Layla's eyes darted, catching subtle movements of enemy fighters. She called out positions, movements, and commands. "East Ridge, sniper repositioning, South Canyon, grenades ready, blocking path, 2 advancing north." The Rangers shifted, firing with deadly precision. Sparks flew, explosions rocked the wadi, sand filled the air. Layla stayed low, relaying every detail, heart pounding. Suddenly, a young private screamed as he was hit in the leg. Brooks lunged, dragging him behind cover. Layla's chest tightened. Her translations had kept them alive so far, but this battle was far from over. Then the enemy launched their coordinated strike. Explosions tore through the wadi, bullets screamed, and the Rangers were pinned. Layla ducked, eyes wide, translating every movement, every whisper, every command. Her adrenaline surged. She realized the convoy's survival depended on her. Not just on Brooks, not just on the Rangers, but on her eyes, her ears, her voice. And in that moment she understood. She had become the heartbeat of the convoy, the force that could turn the tide, the link between survival and annihilation. The desert held its breath. The Rangers braced, bullets whizzed past, explosions thundered, and Layla prepared herself for the critical moment that could decide everything. The wadi trembled under relentless fire. Sand exploded in geysers, bullets ricocheted off jagged rocks, and the acrid smoke of burning diesel stung every eye and throat. The Rangers were pinned, battered, and on the edge of exhaustion. For Layla Carter, every heartbeat felt like a countdown. She had survived ambushes, RPGs, and IEDs, but now the enemy was coordinated, organized, and ruthless. "Carter," Brooks Hale shouted, voice raw over the roar of gunfire. "What's their movement? Where are they weakest?" Layla's eyes darted over the battlefield, scanning for patterns she hadn't noticed before. She caught a subtle shift, a small gap between two boulders where the enemy had left a sliver of unguarded ground. Her mind raced. East Ridge's small gap, lightly guarded, could flank. Brooks' eyes narrowed. "Carter, you're suggesting what I think you're suggesting." She swallowed hard. "Yes, we can use it. It's risky, but it could break their line if we move fast." Brooks gave a tight nod. "Delta One, follow my lead. Everyone else suppressing fire. Carter, you're with me." The Rangers moved. Bullets zipped past like angry hornets, ricocheting off rocks, kicking up sparks and sand. Layla crouched low, keeping her rifle at the ready, translating every movement of the enemy. Two on the ridge, sniper repositioning, advancing north, explosives primed. The convoy's path narrowed. Every step forward was a gamble. An RPG detonated nearby, throwing sand and smoke into the air. Layla was thrown forward, landing hard on the wadi floor. Her hands shook, dust in her mouth, adrenaline burning every nerve. Yet she scrambled up, eyes scanning, translating, guiding, becoming the nerve center of the Rangers' strategy. Brooks signaled Delta One forward. Layla crawled low through the narrow gap she had identified, bullets whistling past. Sparks erupted as rounds struck the rocks around her. Her heart pounded, every instinct screaming to stay down, but she pressed on. From the East Ridge, enemy fighters shouted in Arabic, repositioning, preparing to stop any advance. Layla translated instantly. "Light cover, vulnerable, one flank exposed." Brooks' eyes glinted. "Carter, mark them. Delta 3, suppress fire, we're taking the ridge." The Rangers opened fire, bullets tearing through the sand, ricocheting off rock walls. Sparks and flashes lit the smoke-filled wadi. Layla stayed low, scanning for enemy positions, translating every movement. She realized she was no longer just a translator. She was a strategic guide, an essential player on the battlefield. Suddenly, a figure emerged from behind a boulder, a fighter carrying explosives moving toward the convoy. Layla's pulse skyrocketed. "RPG moving north, primed to fire," she shouted. Brooks reacted instantly, firing a precise burst that sent the attacker sprawling. The secondary explosives detonated harmlessly in the sand. Layla's chest heaved. They were alive, but the danger wasn't over. From the far ridge, more enemy reinforcements appeared, moving to cut off escape routes. Layla's stomach tightened. North Ridge, multiple advancing, grenades blocking exit. Brooks swore under his breath. "We have to move now. Delta One, push forward. Carter, guide us." The convoy surged forward, moving through the narrow wadi. Bullets and grenades tore past, rocks exploded, and dust filled every breath. Layla ducked, rolling behind cover, her voice sharp and steady. "East Ridge, small opening, flank opportunity, suppressing fire needed now." Brooks nodded, signaling Delta One. They surged through the gap. Layla's heart raced as she translated the enemy's reactions. "They're vulnerable, East Wadi, take advantage, flank." The Rangers acted immediately. Suppressive fire tore through the enemy's positions, forcing them back from the ridge. Explosions rocked the wadi as grenades were hurled, and bullets ripped through the sand. Layla stayed low, directing fire, guiding movements, her mind racing with every step. Then she saw it, a sniper on the far ridge aiming directly at Brooks. Her stomach dropped. The sniper, far ridge aiming at Brooks, prepared a fire. Brooks reacted instantly, diving behind a boulder. Layla's hands shook as she relayed his movements to Delta 3, guiding their return fire. Bullets zipped past, ricocheting off the ridge. Sparks flew. The sniper's shot struck the rock inches from Brooks' head. Carter suppressed that ridge, Brooks yelled, firing rapidly. Layla's voice rang sharp and clear. East Ridge, sniper down, advance now, flanking move. The Rangers surged. The enemy was caught off guard, their lines broken. Layla's translations guided every movement. The narrow gap became a killing zone for the Rangers, who pressed forward with lethal precision. From the South Canyon, enemy fighters tried to regroup, but Layla anticipated their movements. South Canyon, too, advancing, flanking attempt, covered Delta 4. Brooks shouted orders and the Rangers intercepted, bullets tearing through the sand, explosions rocking the ground. Layla ducked low, translating every movement, guiding every shot, every step, every breath. Suddenly, an enemy fighter emerged directly in front of her, armed and ready to fire. Time seemed to slow. Layla's heart raced. She remembered every simulation, every drill, every translation she had made. She realized that her survival and the survival of the convoy depended on what she did next. In a flash, she grabbed her rifle and fired. The enemy collapsed into the sand. Sparks flew as his weapon hit the rocks. Layla's breath came in short gasps. She realized something remarkable. She had gone from translator to active combatant, shaping the battlefield with her own actions. Brooks' eyes widened slightly, then returned to focus. "Carter, you're a hell of a soldier." The Rangers pressed the advantage. Bullets tore through the air, explosions rocked the wadi, and enemy lines began to crumble. Layla continued translating, guiding, and now even shooting, her voice steady even as her body shook with adrenaline. From the shadows, another figure moved, a sniper trying to reposition. Layla caught it instantly. North Ridge sniper relocating, prepare. Brooks nodded. Delta 3 opened fire, hitting the sniper before he could take aim. Sparks flew, sand exploded, and the wadi fell momentarily silent, an uneasy silence, heavy with dust and tension. Layla exhaled sharply. Her body trembled, lungs burning. For the first time in hours, she allowed herself a moment to realize what had happened. The tide had turned. The Rangers were no longer pinned, they had momentum, and she had played a central role in it. But the desert was unforgiving. The enemy might be broken, but reinforcements could come. Layla knew the fight wasn't over, yet in that moment she felt something she hadn't before: power, courage, and purpose beyond translation. The Rangers regrouped, battered but alive. Layla's hands shook, sweat and dust streaking her face. Brooks leaned close, voice low. "Carter, today, you didn't just translate, you saved lives. You saved us all." She nodded, chest tight with exhaustion and adrenaline. The wadi lay silent around them, only the hiss of smoke and the soft groans of the wounded breaking the quiet. But she knew the desert had witnessed something remarkable. Layla Carter, the translator, the observer, the invisible one, had become a force that could turn the tide of battle. And somewhere in the shadows, the enemy still lurked, but now they faced an unexpected challenge: a translator who had become a soldier. The desert sun had begun to dip behind the jagged ridges, casting long, bloody shadows across the wadi. The firefight had subsided, leaving only the soft hiss of dust settling and the occasional groan of the wounded. The convoy lay battered but intact, a testament to the skill, courage, and sheer willpower of the Rangers, and one extraordinary translator. Layla Carter sank to the ground behind the twisted metal of the overturned MRAP. Her hands were trembling, covered in dust, blood, and soot. Every muscle in her body ached. Her lungs burned from the smoke, sand, and adrenaline, but she was alive, and the Rangers were alive because of her. Brooks Hale approached, rifle slung but eyes still scanning the horizon. He crouched beside her, wiping sweat and grime from his face. "Carter, "You did something today none of us expected," he said, voice low but filled with awe. "You kept us alive. You didn't just translate, you fought, guided, and saved lives. You were the difference." Layla shook her head, still catching her breath. I was just trying to keep up, just trying to help." Brooke's eyes hardened, filled with respect. "No, you did more than help. You were the link we couldn't afford to lose. You were our eyes, our ears, and in some cases, our shield." She looked around at the convoy. Wounded soldiers were being assisted, vehicles were being checked for damage, and the desert seemed eerily calm after the storm. The enemy had retreated, leaving behind scattered debris, destroyed weapons, and the echo of their failed ambush. Layla's thoughts drifted back to the moment in the wadi when she had fired her first shot. She had never imagined herself capable of that. Never imagined she would be guiding, translating, and acting simultaneously under the crushing weight of life-or-death pressure. And yet, she had. A medic approached, kneeling beside her. "You need to sit still, catch your breath, you're shaking." Layla exhaled, nodding. She glanced at the Rangers, seeing them regrouping, counting heads, tending wounds. They were battered, but their eyes held a new light, a mixture of exhaustion and awe. They had faced death together, and they had survived. Brooks walked toward the center of the convoy, gathering the team. "Listen up," he barked, voice carrying authority even through fatigue. "We've been hit hard, but we're still operational. We know their tactics, we've taken the ground, and we've survived their ambush. Every one of you did your part. But today, Carter did more than her part. She was the difference between life and death." Murmurs of agreement swept through the Rangers. Layla's face flushed, a mix of embarrassment and pride. They weren't just thanking her, they were acknowledging that she had become more than a translator. She had become a soldier, a guide, and a hero. She looked at Brooks. "I couldn't have done it without all of you. Every move you made, every shot, I was just translating it into words." Brooks shook his head. "No, Carter, you didn't just translate, you anticipated, guided, and acted. Today you faced the enemy head-on in a way none of us expected. You changed the outcome. That's more than translation." The convoy moved slowly, reorganizing for extraction. Layla remained close to Brooks, still alert, still scanning the horizon. She had survived bullets, RPGs, grenades, and the chaos of the wadi. But she had also discovered something within herself, a courage and capability she hadn't known existed. As the sun sank lower, the desert became a canvas of orange and red, painting the jagged rocks and sand with the color of fire. The aftermath was quiet now, almost peaceful. The Rangers tended the wounded, repaired vehicles where they could, and scanned the distant ridges for lingering threats. Layla Carter finally allowed herself to relax slightly, inhaling deeply. She had been invisible once, just a translator, a shadow in the background. But today she had stepped into the light. She had saved lives, guided soldiers, and faced the enemy directly. And the battlefield had recognized her as more than she had ever imagined. Brooks clapped her shoulder gently. "You know, Carter, if anyone ever doubted your place here, they won't anymore. You earned it." Layla swallowed hard, emotions threatening to spill. She felt exhaustion, relief, and pride mingling in her chest. But she also felt a strange calm, as if the desert itself had acknowledged her courage. The Rangers began to prepare for extraction, the convoy moving steadily out of the wadi, leaving behind the scars of battle. Layla glanced back once, taking in the twisted metal, the smoke rising from the sand, and the path they had fought to survive. Each step forward was a testament to determination, skill, and the will to survive against impossible odds. As the last rays of sun dipped behind the horizon, Brooks called the team together one final time. "We survived because we worked together. But today, Carter proved that even someone who thinks they're just a translator can make the difference between life and death. Remember that. Respect that. Never forget it." The Rangers nodded, a silent acknowledgement of what they had witnessed. Layla felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She was no longer just the translator. She had become a hero, a soldier and a force in her own right. The convoy moved on, leaving the wadi and the echoes of gunfire behind. Layla Carter looked ahead, eyes sharp, mind racing, not with fear but with understanding. She had faced the enemy, survived the chaos, and discovered the strength within herself. She was changed, and the battlefield would never see her, or anyone like her, the same way again. Somewhere in the distance, the desert was silent now, indifferent yet witness to everything that had happened. Layla Carter had survived. She had acted, and she had become more than anyone had expected, including herself. And as the convoy disappeared into the horizon, a single thought lingered in her mind. I am not invisible, I never was. The desert swallowed the dust and debris of the battle, leaving only the story of courage, determination, and the extraordinary translator who became a hero.